No, bro,
The
this is
television.
missing from the last time.
Yeah, I know. Because every time I come, something else is missing.
No, Mataji, we are in two minds to change the wooden floor, so that's why things are not coming back in.
So we are on 33, 34. Second chapter.
Yeah. Somebody's asking you.
Yes.
We're on 34. Second chapter, verse 3. The second chapter, verse 3. Akirtim chapi bhutani Gatayishyanti Devyayam Devyayam Sambhavitasya Chakritir Maranad Atirichyate. Oh, I think we read this. We read this from last week. Okay, so we're on 35. Verse 35. Vayad Ranad Aparatam Mamsyante Tvamaharataha Yesam Chatvam Bahumhato Rupa Yasya Silagavam. Okay, so you can read.
Lord Krishna continues to give
Read the verse first.
translation. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant. Purport. Lord Krishna continues to give this verdict to Arjuna. Do not think that the great generals like Duryodhana, Karna, and other contemporaries will think that you have left the battlefield out of compassion for your brothers and grandfathers. They will think that you have left out of fear for your life, and thus their high estimation of your personality will go to zero.
Okay, then let's read the next one. Go ahead. Somebody else. Go ahead.
Translation. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and learn your abilities. What could be more painful for you? Report. Lord Krishna was astonished in the beginning at Arjuna's uncalled for plea for compassion, and he described his compassion as befitting the non-Aryanas. Now, in so many words, he has proved that his statements against Arjuna's so-called compassion.
Now, in so many words, he has proved his statements against Arjuna's so-called compassion. Okay, let's go on to the next one.
O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. Wherefore, even though there was no certainty of victory for Arjuna's side, he still had to fight. For even being killed there, he could be elevated into the heavenly planets.
Okay, we'll read the next one.
Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin. Purpose. Lord Krishna now directly says that Arjuna should fight for the sake of fighting because he desires the battle. There is no consideration of happiness or distress, profit or loss, victory or defeat in the activities of Krishna consciousness.
Did you say profit or loss? Okay, go ahead.
That everything should be performed for the sake of Krishna is transcendental consciousness. So there is no reaction to material activities. He who acts for his own sense gratification, either in goodness or in passion, is subject to the reaction, good or bad. But he who has completely surrendered himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness is no longer obliged to anyone, nor is he debtor to anyone as one is in the ordinary course of activities. It is said, Devarshi Bhutapta Dhrunam Pitrunam Na Kinkaro Nayam Drini Charajan Sarvatmanam Ya Sharanam Sharanyam Gato Mukundam Parihritya Kartam. Anyone who has completely surrendered unto Krishna, Mukunda, giving up all other duties, is no longer a debtor, nor is he obliged to anyone, nor the demigods, nor the sages, nor the people in general, nor kinsmen, nor humanity, nor forefathers. Bhagavatam 11.5.41. That is the indirect hint given by Krishna to Arjuna in this verse, and the matter will be more clearly explained in the following verses.
Okay, very good. So, we'll discuss these verses. Especially this verse is very important because it points to the, again, we said everything depends on the motive. If our motive is only to preach Krishna, then, and we confirm that with by receiving instructions of spiritual master and spiritual authorities, then there is a very interesting thing that happens. We're no longer responsible for the results. But if we have a personal motive, then we become entangled in the laws of eternal nature. Let's take a look at 18th chapter, 17th verse. This verse says, one who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled. Though he kills men in this world, does not kill, nor is he bound by his actions. 18:17. In this verse, the Lord informs Arjuna that the desire not to fight arises from false ego. Arjuna thought himself to be the doer of action, but he did not consider the supreme sanction within him as that. The supreme sanction within is Krishna, and the supreme sanction of God is Krishna's pure representative, one by spiritual master. If one does not know that a super sanction is there, why should he act? But one who knows the instruments of work himself as the worker, and the Supreme Lord as the supreme sanctioner, is perfect in doing everything. Such a person is never an illusion. Personal activity and responsibility arise from false ego and godlessness, or lack of Krishna consciousness. Anyone who is acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the Super Soul, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though killing, does not kill. Nor is he ever affected by the reaction of such killing. When a soldier kills under the command of a superior officer, he is not subject to be judged. But if a soldier kills on his own personal account, then he is certainly judged by a court of law. So this gives a little more perspective of the verse, the second chapter, 38th verse. In other words, everything depends on the motive. If the motive is dictated by the false ego, we are responsible for it. What is a false ego? False ego is generated by attachment to the body and everything in relationship to the body. Okay, so that's explained in the 15th chapter. It says, Nirmana Malakita Sangha Dosa, 15th chapter, verse 5. Which says, okay, so those who are free from false ego, false prestige, illusion and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. Okay, so now in the purport, Prabhupada says, the surrendering process is described here very nicely. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride. Because the conditioned soul is puffed up, thinking himself the Lord of eternal nature, it is very difficult for him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of God. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not the Lord of eternal nature. The Supreme Personality of God is the Lord. When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. For one who is always expecting some honor in this mature world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. Pride is due to illusion. For although one comes here and stays for a brief time and then goes away, he has the foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. He thus makes all things complicated, and he is always in trouble. The whole world moves under this impression. People are considering the land, this earth, belong to human society, and have divided the land under the false impression that they are the proprietors. One has to get out of this false notion that human society is the proprietor of this world. When one is freed from such a false notion, he becomes free from all false associations caused by familial, social, and national affections. These faulty associations bind one to this material world. So that is what's being described as the false ego. It begins by ignorance of Krishna. Like it says in this purport, 1817, it says, Arjuna's desire not to fight arises from false ego. Arjuna thought himself to be the doer of action, but he did not consider the supreme sanction within and without. So there's 5 factors to every action that is. 1, the doer. 2, the place of the action, which is the body. 3, the senses, including the mind. 4, the different types of action, endeavors. And 5, Krishna, the super soul. So Arjuna did not take into account Krishna when he made his decision to fight. He took into account his relationships with his family members. He took into account his desire to be happy by winning the battle. But how can he be happy when he kills one side of his family in the battle? So he didn't see how he would be happy if he won or lost, because if he lost his brothers, won the other parts of his family. So he was considering his own happiness, material happiness. So it says here that personal activity and responsibility arise from false ego and godlessness, or a lack of Krishna consciousness. So this false ego is based on the desire, based on attachment to the body and everything in relation to the body, family, friends, nation, ethnic group, etc. And one develops pride, like, every ethnic group, every nation, they think they're the greatest in the world. The Chinese think they're the most intelligent people. Indians think they're the most whatever in the world. Every group has their own theory about how they are exceptional. And therefore, this causes an illusion. It's actually an illusory concept. And it's all based on the body. So, personal activity and responsibility arise from false ego and godlessness, or lack of Krishna consciousness. So the false ego is based on attachment to the body and everything in relationship with the body. And that means that if we're attached to the body, then we don't have any understanding of the soul and its relationship to Krishna. We have an understanding that the body and its relationship to family members and ethnic groups and nationality and so forth. So our whole basis of understanding ourselves is wrong. That's why it's called false ego. If something is false, it means that we're attached to something that's temporary, rather than being attached to something that's eternal. So our soul is eternal, body is temporary. The identification with a family or a nation or an ethnic group is temporary. As long as we have that as the identification of ourselves, we develop this false ego. In other words, we develop a persona that's false, an understanding of ourselves that's completely false. And because of that, everything we do also is false. Just like Arjuna's desire not to fight was false. That's what Krishna rejected. So people can go throughout their entire life led by the false ego. And everything they do is false. It's not right. They think it's right, but it's actually not right. Like, for example, in the Christian church, they don't believe animals have a soul. Therefore, they consider the right to kill animals and eat them. So, that is completely false. Animals do have a soul. But, as soon as you make a decision in life based on a false premise, from that point on, everything you do is false. And we get into trouble.
Jesus Christ used to say that and he told us so.
No. Not that I know. Because if you read the history of Jesus Christ, he was born in a sect of Judaism that were actually vegetarians. They were not eating. Now people say, oh, he ate meat because he multiplied 2 fish and 2 pieces of bread to feed 4,000. Well, Prabhupada was asked that question once. He said, if you have the power to multiply 2 fish and 2 pieces of bread to feed 4,000 people, then you can eat fishes. In other words, we should not try, and if we can't imitate Jesus, then we should, if we don't have the same power that Jesus had, then we should not try to imitate. And there's no indication that he ate the fish. So, that Prabhupada was asked that question, because in the Bible, it says that Jesus multiplied 2 fish and 2 pieces of bread to feed about 4,000 people. I think this is right after the Sermon on the Mount. And Prabhupada said, if you have the power to do that, then you can eat fish. But if you don't have the power to do it, then don't even think about it. So, this is important. This verse is very important. Go back to the verse. It says in the purport, Lord Krishna now directly says that Arjuna should fight for the sake of fighting because he, meaning Krishna, desires the battle. So this is the whole point. How do we know what Krishna wants us to do? We're faced with so many different decisions in life. How do we know that Krishna wants us to do this or that? In this case, Krishna desired the battle. So once we know what Krishna, and then we'll answer this question, how do we know what Krishna wants us to do? But here it says, Krishna wanted the battle. So, if he wants the battle, there is no consideration of happiness or distress, profit or loss, victory or defeat in the activities of Krishna consciousness. So if we join Krishna consciousness, once we know what the right action is, then there's no consideration of happiness or distress, profit or loss, victory or defeat in the activities of Krishna consciousness. That everything should be performed for the sake of Krishna's transcendental consciousness. So, this is what differentiates us from normal people. Normal people mean they're not normal, they're abnormal. But we call them normal, but actually they're not normal. They're committing all kinds of sinful activity out of ignorance. They're not actually doing what Krishna wants them to do. So this, what differentiates a Krishna conscious person, that is, once they know what Krishna wants them to do, they will do it without fear or trepidation or doubt, without considering profit or loss, without considering their happiness or distress, or victory or defeat. In other words, this is the position of becoming free of duality in life. Just like Prabhupada, he knew that his guru ordered him back in 1922, you should preach this Krishna consciousness in the English speaking. Well, he was not prepared to do that right away because he had just been married and had some kids. But he fixed that in his mind as his goal, and he worked toward it. So when he came to the right age, give up family life, become a sannyasi. And then he was also told that he would print books. So he started writing and publishing. So then he comes to America and starts preaching Krishna consciousness in the speaking world. So there's no question of victory or defeat, profit or loss, happiness or distress. He did it risking his life and his personal welfare. He met many obstacles, but he never gave up. And he succeeded tremendously because his motivation was pure. Follow the order of the spiritual master. Follow the prediction, prophecy of Lord Chaitanya. His holy name would be spread in every town and village. He didn't doubt that it would happen. The question is, would he be an instrument or would he just be a spectator? A non-participating spectator. But he wanted to be an instrument of the Lord's will. So he knew this was going to happen. He didn't know if he was capable of doing it. But no, he was sure he's not capable of doing it. But yet, if Krishna wanted him to do it, he knows Krishna wants him to do it because his guru told him this is what he should do. So that part was clear. But that's why it says here, if you go back to 1817, it says, anyone who is acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the Supersoul, or the Supreme Personality of the Godhead, even though killing does not kill, nor is he ever affected by the reactions of such killing. So, Prabhupada knew what the order of Lord Chaitanya was, and the prophecy. He got the order from a spiritual master. So now there's no more question of profit or loss, happiness or distress, victory or defeat. He went forward, even though he had no money, he had no disciples, he had very few books, but he decided on it. So he was not conflicted by duality. One purpose and pure desire, and he was able to succeed because of it. Why? Because Krishna helped him, of course. So, this is what this verse is all about. 2nd chapter, 25th verse. Where it says, it is said that the soul is invisible. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Second verse, 38, I mean, 2nd chapter, 38th verse. Krishna asks Arjuna, do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat. And by so doing, you shall never incur sin. So, the main point is that everything should be performed for the sake of Krishna. That everything should be performed for the sake of Krishna is transcendental consciousness. So there is no reaction to material activities. So everything is going to be judged by our motive motive is purely to please Prabhupada and Krishna, then there are no, let's say, there's no reaction to our activity. If we have any other, if you have the slightest personal motive for being honored or sense gratification, whatever, then there's going to be reactions. He who acts for his own sense gratification, either in goodness or in passion, is subject to the reaction, good or bad. But he who has completely surrendered himself to the activities of Krishna consciousness is no longer obliged to anyone, nor is he a debtor to anyone, as one is in the ordinary course of things. So, how did we, now we'll come back to the question. How do we really know what Krishna wants us to do? Well, we just gave an example of how Prabhupada knew what Krishna wanted to do. First of all, his guru tells him in 1922, he's not even his guru yet, first time he meets Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, tells him, you speak English, so you should spread this movement in English speaking. Point 1. Point 2, from the Shastra, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna's Paresh knows that Lord Chaitanya says, that this holy name will be heard in every town and village in the world. It will be spread all over. Now, second validation. And Krishna says that Yati Jam Paramam Guyam Madhvati Sarvadasi Bhaktimai Param Mam Rasisam Rachatasma Manushi Su Kaschit Naiti Bhavitanam Shaneta Mad Anyakri. So he says, for one who explains the supreme secret to the devotees, meaning Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is 1868 and 69. If anyone asks you, how do I know what Krishna wants me to do? You show these two verses, 1868 and 69. For anyone who explains the supreme secret to the devotees, how do we know supreme secret refers to Bhagavad Gita? Because 9th chapter, 2nd verse says, Raja Vidya Raja Guyam. Krishna tells Arjuna, this Bhagavad Gita is Raja Vidya, the kingdom of knowledge, and Raja Guyam, the supreme secret also. So one who explains the supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end you will come back to me. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. So if you want to be the most dear servant of Krishna, you should learn Bhagavad Gita and teach it to others. Then you're the most dear servant of Krishna. And this is what Krishna wants. Where Chaitanya said this holy name is going to be spread to every town and village. Then he said, Bharata Pumite Hailanjan. Bharata Pumite. Janma Sartak Karikara Paro. He said that this holy name, anyone born in Bharat should become Krishna conscious and spread it all over. Everyone you meet should tell them who Krishna is. That's your duty if you're born in Bharat. So Prabhupada was born in Bharat. Chaitanya prophesied that the name Krishna will be spread all over the world, and that being born in Bharat, his duty is to learn Krishna consciousness spread. Krishna says, there's no one dearer to me than the person who learns Bhagavad Gita and teaches it to others.
Rohit was just saying that those who explain the single teacher to a devotee.
Yeah. Anyone who wants to hear is a devotee. I mean, you're wanting to hear it, right? So,
I mean, even if you meet people on the streets, not everyone wants to listen. So they also have to kind of do.
if they listen, they would. They're interested in the subject. Okay, so then also it says, Krishna Upadesh, whoever you see, you should speak Krishna Upadesh. Tell them who Krishna is. Huh? Jaya Dekha Krishna Upadesh. Amara Guru Manaya. So, whoever you see, you should tell them about Krishna. So you bring all these verses together, and now you understand how Prabhupada came to the conclusion that he should follow his Guru's order and preach Krishna consciousness all over the world. So he came to America with a pure desire, no personal motive. The only motive was to follow the order of his Guru, to try and be an instrument and bring about the prophecy of Lord Chaitanya, which was sure to happen. But what's not sure is whether we are going to be instrumental in it. That's a decision that we have to make. But if we make that decision, just like Arjuna, he becomes an instrument of Krishna's will. Right? And that's the type of decision we have to make. Do I want to just follow my own false ego, or do I want to follow Krishna's desire? Krishna's desire is his holy name will be spread all over the world. And all people should come back to Godhead. Actually, Krishna wants us to come back to Godhead more than we want. This Prabhupada explains that in Bhagavad Gita. It says, chapter. Krishna wants us to think of him always. It's in the 8th chapter, 8th verse. Second paragraph, it says, the devotee can constantly think of the object of worship, the Supreme Lord, in any of his features, Narayana, Krishna, Rama, etc., by chanting Hare Krishna. This practice will purify him, and at the end of his life, due to his constant chanting, he will be transferred to the kingdom of God. Yoga practices meditation on the supersoul within. Similarly, by chanting Hare Krishna, one fixes his mind always on the Supreme Lord. The mind is fickle, and therefore it is necessary to engage the mind by force to think of Krishna. So, similarly, if we constantly think of Krishna, it's certain that at the end of our lives, we shall have the same bodily constitution of Krishna. So that means that Krishna wants us to always be thinking of him. And the best way to always be thinking of him is to have pure desires to serve him under the instructions of bona fide spiritualists. That way our mind, just like Prabhupada's mind, was always fixed on how am I going to please my Guru. He asked me to go to English-speaking world and spread Krishna consciousness. So he prepared himself for that. And then he did it. And because his motive was pure, he was able to spread the movement all over the world in a very short period of time. And there was no karma involved. There was no question of profit or loss, victory or defeat, fame or infamy. So he was liberated from all duality of life. So Arjuna should fight for the sake of fighting because Krishna desires the battle. There's no consideration of happiness or distress, profit or gain, victory or defeat in the activities of Krishna consciousness. That everything should be performed for the sake of Krishna is transcendental consciousness. And again, we're back to 2nd chapter, 38th verse, the one we're studying today. He who acts for his own, so there's no reaction to pure activities. He who acts for his own sense gratification, either in goodness or in passion, is subject to the reaction, good or bad. But he who has completely surrendered himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness is no longer obliged to anyone, nor is he a debtor to anyone, as one is in the ordinary course of activity. So this is a very sublime understanding. In other words, if we understand this, then we are liberated in this world from doubts and dualities. And again, we'll go back to 3rd chapter, 30th verse that we looked at last week. It says, therefore, Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. This verse clearly indicates the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. We discussed this last week. The Lord instructs that one has to become fully Krishna conscious to discharge duties. So in other words, to be able to discharge duties like Prabhupada did, without considering profit or loss, victory or defeat, fame or infamy, etc., happiness or distress, being free of all those dualities. You have to be fully Krishna conscious to discharge your duties as if in military discipline. Military discipline means you cannot say no. If you say no, they put you in jail. In the army. Like, for example, Stalin, if someone said no, they would immediately get killed. If someone said, I'm not picking up my gun, I'm not going to charge the Germans. The people in charge would shoot him on the site. Either you go out there and get killed by the Germans, or we'll kill you right now. So that's called military discipline. So in the same way, Prabhupada's saying that to become fully Krishna conscious, to discharge duties, as if in military discipline, such an injunction may make things a little difficult. Nevertheless, duties must be carried out with dependence on Krishna. Dependence on Krishna. Very big concept. That is, just like Prabhupada, he depended on Krishna when he came to America. He knew he didn't have the strength, for the ability to convince the Americans to be Christian. But if Krishna gave him the ability to do it, he could do it. So if you read that prayer he said, he first was in Boston Harbor looking at America for the first time. He said, I'm not sure why you sent me here. But if you want me to spread this message, then you must help me. I do not have the strength to do this. You give me the strength and I can do it. So he doesn't have a false ego. He's not saying, oh, I can do it. He's saying, I don't have the strength to do this. If you want me to do it, then you please give me the strength. So that means that the whole credit goes to Krishna. He's not going to be like a politician. I did this. I did that. I did this. I did that. So this is a different mindset. Then it says here, nevertheless, duties must be carried out with dependence on Krishna, because that is the constitutional position of a living entity. The living entity cannot be happy independent of the cooperation of Supreme Lord, because the eternal constitutional position of the living entity is to become subordinate to the desires of the Lord. Now this is, again, a big subject. Subordinate to the desires of the Lord. So now we come back and answer the question. What does Krishna want us to do? What does he desire that we do? He wants us to think of him 24 hours a day. And if you can do that, he guarantees you coming back to life. And whatever you do in this life, you will have Krishna's help. Because of that pure focus of mind. So, therefore he tells Arjuna, always think of me, fight. That would do your duty. And he says, surrender unto me, and I will free you from all karma. And then he says, if you don't surrender unto me, then you will fight anyway, but you'll get entangled. So, if you look, 18th chapter says, chapter, verse 59. If you do not act according to my direction and do not fight, then you will be falsely directed. By your nature, you will have to be engaged in warfare. So, and that's purport. And then the next verse says, under illusion, you are now declining to act according to my direction. But compelled by the work born of your own nature, you will act all the same, O son of Kunti. So now we read these two purports, because these two purports reveal what happens if we act under the influence of our false ego. Then we become entangled in material life. So, who's going to read?
Arjuna was a military man and born of the nature of the Kshatriya. Therefore, his natural duty was to fight. But due to false ego, he was fearing that by killing his teacher, grandfather, and friends, he would incur sinful reactions. Although he was considering himself master of his actions, as if he were directing the good and bad results of such work, he forgot that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present there, instructing him to fight. That is the forgetfulness of the conditioned soul. The Supreme Personality gives direction as to what is good and what is bad. And one simply has to act in Krishna consciousness to attain the perfection of peace. No one can set him his destiny and
Madhya Lila 7:1-8. It says, Gare Desha Hare Kaha Krishna Upadesh. Amara Adhyaya Gurahana Ete. So, this verse says, instruct everyone to follow the orders of Lord Shri Krishna as they are given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, become a spiritual master and try to liberate everyone in this land. This is the order. This is what Krishna wants us to do. And if you do that, your mind will be fixed on Krishna. And then he guarantees that you come back in this life. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 7:128. Madhya Lila chapter 7, verse 128. Write it down. Whenever you want, whenever you think, what does Krishna want me to do? You look this verse up. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 7:128. And in order to do this, you have to learn Bhagavad Gita. And that is Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, verses 67 and 68. Alright, so now, you have 3 verses that tell you directly, Krishna is telling you directly what you should do in this life. 18th chapter, 67, 68. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, 7th chapter, 128. What?
You also said 1862.
67 and
I'm sorry, 68, 69. 18th chapter, 68, 69. Sorry.
Probably we can remember Krishna by preaching about it, talking about it. That's the secret for remembering Krishna by silence. But probably in every religion that's what people do. So that we call like at least that's the same thing that you have to preach out.
Okay. Well, most religions believe in one God. So Krishna is telling us in Bhagavad Gita, obviously telling the Muslims, and he's telling the Christians and the Jews to do the same thing. It's the same God. But, again, what are the 4 criterions by which you can judge a religion? Those points of logic. How can you judge a religion? 4 criteria. One is truth.
For principles.
Yes. Yeah. So those are 4 criteria. So, like for example, like the homework for tomorrow. I don't know, were you in the class last Saturday? Maybe not. The homework for tomorrow, Arush, was huh? You weren't there? You sure you weren't there? Homework for tomorrow. Were you there, Sanskrit? What? Well, your mother was there. What homework was
Analyze any 4 religion based on cleanliness, truthfulness, mercy, austerity.
Yes. You can pick 4 religions and judge them based on the 4 criteria.
You were there.
So for example, if you Look at Christianity, they say animals don't have a soul, you can kill them, eat them, whatever you want. So they're lacking in mercy. Although they talk about mercy all the time.
Yeah.
They're not being merciful to the animals. So their understanding of mercy is incomplete because their understanding of soul is incomplete.
But still they do a lot of charity and those things, kind of
Yeah.
things and
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
they show their compassion in a very different way, but generally when you meet them and all, they're very nice. I mean, you feel comfortable doing what they do.
Well, yes and no. I mean, if you have massive slaughter of animals, is that very nice? And you're saying, well, we can do that because they don't have a soul.
So that means Jainism will fall into this?
Jainism, by the way, they're more
Austere, therefore
austere, yes,
mercy, truthful.
yes. And you can judge, but they're atheists.
They are.
Yeah, they don't believe in God. They believe that human beings can become jinnah, people who have mastered the senses and perfect. But they don't believe that there's a supreme God. But Jainism is atheistic, like Buddhism. They both started around the same time. Yeah.
I have a question for you. See, everybody is getting trained in their particular religion
Yes.
to understand God.
Yes.
So they are kind of being trained to achieve God in that particular way, and we still believe that they understand God and they believe that their gurus or whoever will deliver them. So where does that disconnect come? Why do we feel that what they are doing is incorrect and what we are doing is right?
Okay.
For example, the Pope. Now people who really respect the Pope because he's training them to reach
Yeah.
that level or whatever, or a Jain monk who teaches their followers to follow him.
Okay, now look. If you look at morality, almost all the religions are the same. It's only when you start talking about the soul and who is God that you see the major differences between the religions. Major differences. Okay. The Jains don't accept that there's a God. They accept that human beings can become like God. They're Tirthankars, or they're Jinnahs, people who have mastered the senses and are not committing karma. They wear masks, they don't kill anything they breathe. They don't go like that at one time. They might kill someone. They don't eat roots, because when you dig up the roots, you might kill someone. So, from a moral point of view, they're very good. But their philosophy fails when it comes to understanding God. That doesn't mean they're bad people. Generally, Jains are very good. They're more strict about being vegetarian than Hindus. And they're usually very prosperous. Because they reduce their sinfulness by their moral code. But they don't actually achieve true love of God. They don't believe God exists. They believe that it's possible for an individual to become like a God. But from the moral point of view, all the religions have more or less the same morality. Like Christians have the 10 Commandments. The Hindus have their thing. Jains have their thing. Respect your mother and father. Don't kill. Don't murder. And so forth. So Muslims have similar morality. But when you begin to talk about who is God, what is the soul, you immediately see their major differences. see that they all have that, but the degree to which they have it, that's going to be different. Now, you can't really understand this clearly unless you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and you'll understand. Here's examples. Mercy, cleanliness, truthfulness, spirit. You would understand at that point. Then you can compare, with Jainism. And once you understand Lord Chaitanya, then you're going to be able to easily see the comparison to other religions.
So Prabhuji, from last couple of days, like it's been told in the market, few people are they keep coming to my house and they will tell me about what they talk about. I'm sure they're like Christians.
Missionaries, yeah, they keep coming and they
They
distribute.
keep coming and telling me, so like once I have
You put a sign, no solicitors and no preachers allowed in this house.
I said, like in my house in the front, it's like a Krishna's photo is there with Hare Krishna Muhammad. So I said, so he is the God who's so beautiful. Why should I look anywhere else? I told them. And then they said, no, we have every answer, like whatever you have in your mind, we all have answers in our book. And then I said, like, do you
Our
eat
answer
meat?
is you can eat meat.
No, yeah, I asked, do you
That's
eat
our
meat?
answer.
They said, yes, we do eat meat. And then I said, you know, I eat meat in the house. And don't teach me. I'm in the best place. I'm not sure if they're happy with me, but still they're coming.
No.
How do I tell them
Their
no?
duty is to come. Their duty is to
Then how do I tell them no? Like, you know, I'm in
come. No, you
a.
put a sign on your door. If you are here to convert me to your religion, please don't knock.
No, but you know, Prabhu, they come to my house very often and my husband never drives in. We happily listen to whatever he says. And I have more number of Bibles in my house than Bhagavad Gita. Every time somebody comes and my husband like, no, we shouldn't do that. It's God. So even the, everything is kept very respectfully because we don't feel like, I don't feel like kind of,
So can I come to
throwing
your house? Your husband will listen to me?
Oh yeah, he has great respect for you, Prabhu. No, I'm generally telling like
Then I'll
in
come.
case.
I'll come to your house.
No, in the sense that anything which is related to God, he doesn't like to disrespect in the sense. So he wouldn't throw a Bible or a pamphlet given by them. So
Yeah.
he just keep it. So, and I still remember when my daughter, I used to send her to a church school in Houston, and because it's a church, they would teach them all about Christianity. So she said, they asked her, do you have a Bible in the house? And she said, no, I don't have Bible. So then the teacher came and said, can we give you a Bible? So I couldn't say no. I said, be sure. So I have all those books in the house, probably. So I don't know.
But they try to show me like where it is written like eating meat is okay. Like some verse or something, and then it says, give me some.
You should show them where it says eating meat is not okay. 926. Bhagavad Gita 926.
But I don't argue with them or anything. I said, just fine, okay, I just take it. But I find it very
So
difficult.
their objective is to convert me to Christianity. Is that what it is?
Your objective is to convert you to eating meat. No, they're trying to tell you the Bible says you can eat meat.
That's what.
But Prabhu, they are also young boys. I think they've been told to kind of, preach. So they kind of go around, they walk around the entire
No, it was
neighborhood.
it was like really old two persons. They are.
I don't know, the young boys and the
No,
walking all around.
the
the
Mormons are young.
A Mormon, yeah.
The Jehovah's Witnesses, they're usually older.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be one older person and one younger person.
Oh,
Usually,
these
Jehovah's.
are too young.
And the Mormons, they'll always have black pants
Yes,
and a
yes.
white shirt.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and as Jehovah's Witnesses, there's one man with a suit and then one lady with a dress.
So when we compare Hindus, that means Hindu is close to Vedic culture.
Which Hindus? The ones that eat meat or the ones that don't?
Anyway, we should not be calling Hindu anyway. It's a very recent term.
The Bharatiyas.
Okay, got it. So you mean Hindus, you are meaning polytheism.
Policies. Policies. What? Anyway, look, you have 4 criteria by which you can judge a religion. And so if there's a Hindu that's eating meat, and not really following the religion.
No, but yeah, but in the religion, Hinduism doesn't say eating meat is good. It doesn't prescribe eating meat in Hinduism.
But they have only described the sattvic and tamasic food, but they haven't said the
What is the book for Hinduism?
No, why you're saying like Hinduism or something else? Like, you're talking about the same thing. That's why I say there's no word called Hinduism because that's nothing that is based on Vedic things. There's no like, Vedic is different or Hindu is different. Vedic Hindu is people on one side of the river Sindhu. So it was geographic term, but now everybody is like relating it with religion.
I think that's it.
This is the last one.
Okay, so anyway, you can judge a person following a religion by these 4 criteria.
That is possible.
Okay, good. And you judge yourself also by these 4 criteria. Okay, so now coming back to
You said 4, so in mercy you said about killing animals, so what would truthfulness be?
well, truthfulness. If a person, the truthfulness is understanding that I am not the controller. I'm not independent. I depend every moment on the mercy of Krishna. That's truthfulness. And that I need to get reminded of what Krishna wants me to do on a regular basis by going to classes and hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam on a regular basis. That's truthfulness. It's not that I know everything, I have my Bhakti Shastra. No. It doesn't mean anything, I have Bhakti Shastra. It means something, but it doesn't mean that your learning has stopped there. You must regularly hear and repeat, and then we can remember. And by doing that, then we engage in practical service, determination, without being conflicted by dualities of fame and infamy, happiness and distress, etc. So, therefore, we have to do certain things as part of our life. Waking up early, bathing regularly, coming at least once a day to the temple, bowing down to the deity, hearing your class. So, by the way, Monday we're starting something new. Actually, it's not new, but I used to do this all the time. Every night we'll hear a lecture of Prabhupada and discuss it. It's called Prabhupada Appreciation. So that we get trained directly by hearing Prabhupada.
In Chhatrapur?
Yeah.
So Monday.
Now, when I say every night, Monday to Thursday.
Oh, every day?
Monday to Thursday.
After
7:30, yeah. And it'll begin 7:30 and 8:30. It's not going to be more than that. Prabhupada's lectures are usually 45 minutes. It'll be 15 minutes discussion, and you can see the text on your smartphone.
Oh, Prabhupada
So, I mean, there are over 3,000 lectures from Prabhupada, so this will go on 10 years. Basically, let's say 365 days a year, but let's say 300 days a year, we do it, and you'll, in 10 years, you'll hear all the lectures. Very nice.
All of that in Prabhupada.
That way, this is the way I was trained, listening to lectures, right? We didn't have books. Books didn't come out in 69. So,
And again, austerity also you said, so austerity would be the kind of,
waking up early,
oh, that would come under.
bathing, following Ekadasis, fasting on Ekadasis, fasting on feast days, on Janmashtami.
But even Muslims and Christians do that.
No, but every religion has cleanliness, mercifulness, truthfulness, and austerity. Every religion. But how much do they have? Every religion, they have to.
Yeah, because they
religion
follow
they have
something
to
called
have.
Lent days where they don't eat meat and all.
What?
Christianity is on Lent, they don't, during Lent they don't eat meat and all that.
During
No,
what?
they don't eat red meat on Friday. But they eat fish.
But Lent, sir.
Yeah, during Lent.
Oh, Lent during Lent.
What is Lent?
Lent is
Before.
40 days before Easter. During that time, Lent is a period where Jesus went into the desert and was tempted by the devil. And leading up to Easter, where he was crucified. So during that period, because he fasted those 40 days, so Christians have to fast. But usually it's always different levels of fasting, just like in Christian conscience, also different levels of fasting. But usually, they fast, they try and avoid eating meat. And they do different things. They take vows, just like Hindus take vows, they'll fast every Monday for they have these periods in Christianity, and then Muslims have Ramadan. So you're
But
gonna
in the Ramadan community, I had a friend, like, she wake up early in the morning, and then the other evening, and then the whole day, there's no eating. But evening is no.
what they do, they change the schedule. Instead of eating during the day, as soon as the sun goes down, they start eating. Until the sun comes up, then they stop eating.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. They just change their schedule.
In true sense, austerity you will see in Krishna consciousness is quite like then in a problem, but real austerity, I say, Krishna consciousness is a very high standard thing. On a regular basis, when you do it, is when you will realize that it's tough.
It's not actually tough. It makes you more determined to be Krishna conscious by following. You become more confident and determined. Strengthens your willpower to control eating, sleeping, and all these things. Okay. So we were looking at we didn't actually finish this. 1857 and 58. So Krishna says, in 57, in all activities just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. So let's read that first. All these verses we're looking at today are helping us understand second chapter, 38th verse, which is the verse we studied, in which it says, Krishna says, fight for the sake of fighting without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin. So, okay, so who's going to read 57?
When one acts in Krishna consciousness, he does not act as the master of the world. Just like a servant wants to act fully under the direction of the Supreme Lord. A servant has no individual independence. He acts Supreme Master is unaffected by profit and loss. He simply discharges his duty carefully in terms of the order of the Lord. Now, one may assume that Arjuna was acting under the personal direction of Krishna. But when Krishna is not present, how should one act? If one acts according to the direction of Krishna in this world, as well as under the guidance of the representative of Krishna, then the result will be the same.
Point, that's the main point.
The
So,
Sanskrit word matparaha is very important in this verse. It indicates that one has no goal in life, save and accept acting in Krishna consciousness, just to satisfy Krishna. And while working in that way, one should think of Krishna only. I have been appointed to discharge this particular duty by Krishna. While acting in such a way, one naturally has to think of Krishna. This is perfect Krishna consciousness. One should, however, note that after doing something whimsically, he should not offer the result to the Supreme Lord. That sort of duty is not in the devotional service of Krishna consciousness. One should act according to the order of Krishna. This is the very important point. That order of Krishna comes through disciplic succession from the Purnapaya spiritual master. Therefore, the spiritual master's order should be taken as the prime duty of life. If one gets a bona fide spiritual master and acts according to his direction, then one's perfection of life in Krishna consciousness is guaranteed.
okay, so here is a perfect explanation of verse 2nd chapter 38 that we just read. Right. So how do you know what Krishna wants? The order of Krishna is coming through disciplic succession. So we went through those verses. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 7:128. Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter verses 68 69. Right? Bhagavad Gita 3:30. That's 3:31. It explains what the purpose of Bhagavad Gita is. Right?
30 or 331?
331. 3.31. Right? And then now, 18th chapter, verse 57, explains exactly
What Krishna wants us to do.
what Krishna wants us to do. Now, what happens if we don't do that? Verse 58 explains. So who's going to read 58?
So I would say 330, not 331.
Okay, 330.
330 is, and therefore Arjuna surrendering all your works unto me with
Yeah, Mai Sarvani Karma, it's 330. Okay, so now let's read verse 58. This explains what happens if we don't. Who's going to read?
If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of the conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. A person in full Krishna consciousness is not unduly anxious about executing the duties of his existence. The foolish cannot understand this great freedom from all anxiety. For one who acts in Krishna consciousness, Lord Krishna becomes the most intimate friend. He always looks after his friend's comfort and he gives himself to his friend, who is devotedly engaged, working 24 hours a day to please the Lord. Therefore, no one should be carried away by the false ego of the bodily concept of life. One should not falsely think himself independent of the laws of material nature or free to act. He is already under strict material laws. But as soon as he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is liberated, free from the material perplexities. One should note very carefully that one who is not active in Krishna consciousness is losing himself in the material whirlpool, in the ocean of birth and death. No conditioned soul actually knows what is to be done and what is not to be done. But a person who acts in Krishna consciousness is free to act because everything is prompted by Krishna from within and confirmed by the spiritual master.
That's the whole point. Everything is confirmed by the spiritual master within, which is Krishna, and confirmed by the spiritual master without, which is bona fide gurus, Shiksha and Diksha gurus. Why is it mentioned? The Shiksha gurus, because oftentimes Diksha guru might not be present. So if you say, oh, I only listen to my Diksha guru, I don't listen to anybody else, then you are a nonsense. That's why Shiksha guru is important. Shiksha guru are people who you can see every day and get continual guidance, practical basis. So that Shiksha and Diksha guru are like horizontal and vertical threads in a tapestry. So when they're tightly pulled together, the tapestry or the or the rug will last for hundreds of years. They have these handmade tapestries from the Middle Ages, and they have these Oriental rugs. They're like 200, 300, 400 years old because they were pulled very tightly, like this. They have horizontal and vertical threads very tightly bound together. And you can walk on them for 100 years and they still look almost new. So, therefore, Shiksha and Diksha guru is like the horizontal and vertical threads pulled very tightly. They are always there to help the devotee. Okay, so within there's the spirit soul, the super soul, and without is the bona fide spiritual master or masters. Okay. So now we know what happens if you follow and what happens if you don't follow Krishna's instructions. And we learn what are Krishna's instructions for us today. And we learn the difference between acting under the false ego and acting under proper ego. Proper ego is I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. False ego is I'm a member of this family, I'm a member of this ethnic group, I'm a member of this community, I'm a member of this nation, and we need, and that's our ancestors ate meat, that means we should eat meat. We should identify with Krishna, not with material bodies. Then there's no false ego. As long as there's a material body connection or identification, we have a false ego and we will be misled. Okay, so any questions on this verse? Second chapter, 38th verse.
Did the honor point come in the same verse? I have a question around that honor.
Honor?
Honor. So, I'm confused because somewhere in this chapter, 2 verses back, Krishna said, like honor, like for the respectable person, honor is worse than the dead.
Yeah.
But then here he says, you should not expect honor. So it's like then what kind of honor should we maintain versus what level of honor should we not expect?
Good question. It says dishonor is worse than death, right? That's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
And then in the verse purport, 238, it says, no, somewhere else it said that one should not seek to be honored
Yeah.
by their search. That was in another, no, that was 15th chapter.
Yeah, that was good.
15th chapter, 6th verse. always expecting some honor. In this material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme. Right? And then in the other verse it says that people will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. Okay. Well, this is explained in the purport, this 330, second chapter, 34th verse. In the purport it says, for a respectable man like you, meaning Arjuna, ill fame is worse than death. So dishonor means, in this context, ill fame. And honor here in 15:5 is referring to being glorified for something that you do. Expecting to be glorified for something, right? So that is a fruitive result. What is a fruitive result? In other words, you're saying, if I give $5 to this man on the sidewalk in Assam, please help Vietnam vet, God bless, I will feel better. And I can tell my friends, oh, I helped this homeless man by giving him $5. So they'll say, oh, you're a really good person. So that's seeking to be honored. So therefore, if you look at the 13th chapter, 8th verse, it says, Aman itvam adam itvam ahimsa santir Arjuna. So, 15th chapter, 8th verse. So, this Aman itvam means humility. And what does that mean? If you look in the second paragraph in the purport, it says, humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. The material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others. Oh, you're so good. You did this, you did that. You're such a good person. Just like, what did they do? They honored George Walker Bush for like 1 week. He died. They buried him today. He was honored for me. Everyone was eulogizing me because he did that. So, here it says that the material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others. But from the point of view of a man in perfect knowledge, who knows that he is not this body, anything, honor or dishonor pertaining to this body is useless. One should not be hankering after this material deception. This is like the high five. You do something insignificant, people go, hey, high five. So you're honored for doing something. Okay? So people feel good. My self-esteem is going up. You have the high five. It's like, say you're playing soccer, you get a goal, so everyone runs up to you and says, oh, great, they give you a high five. So, great achievement. But what did you actually achieve? Put a ball into the net. But it's like, some great thing. So, one should not seek to be honored.
So then 334 you said is saying about ill fame.
Yes. 2.
Yeah. So
Well, in other words, Arjuna is trained to be a Kshatriya. Kshatriyas never are shot in the back. They're always shot in the chest. Right? They never turn their back. They never run away. Right? They're brave. They're not afraid to die. So, if Arjuna turns around and runs away, they wouldn't say, oh, he did it because he was very compassionate. They say, no, he did it because he's a coward. That's what Krishna is saying. They're not going to honor you for being compassionate. They're going to dishonor you for being a coward. And you get ill fame. So Arjuna is a coward. So just like, who was I reading? I was reading about one Indian revolutionary. Oh, I forget his name. They have a comic book in the temple.
So what did he do?
He killed a couple British guys.
Bhagat Singh.
Bhagat Singh,
Yeah, that
Udham
was,
Singh.
Bhagat Singh was one of them, yes.
Sukhdev Rajput, Udham Singh.
There was another one with him.
Udham Singh?
Chandrasekhar.
Subhash Chandra Bose.
What?
Subhash Chandra Bose.
Yeah,
Chandrasekhar Azad.
yeah, it was about him, but Bhagat Singh was in there also, right? So, you know, what did he do? Like, you know, you read that comic book, it's in the, I read that the other day. So, basically, you know, he was not afraid to die. Right? And he killed some British. So they wrote this comic book, I mean, he's a big hero. Actually, he was a failure, I mean, their whole thing failed. They didn't really, I mean, there was one period where they were fighting against the British in 1920, that period. But their whole thing failed. But he was, honored for being such a brave guy.
So not only brave, but like sacrificing life for the
He was only 18 years old. And the whole country just moved by and they died for independence. At least that part made.
Then they mobilized for that.
Yeah, but they failed. They didn't get rid of the British. The British got rid of them. Yeah, but it inspired. So that type of, so instead of running away, he was not afraid to die.
Yeah, he surrendered to the police.
Actually, Bhagat Singh put a small bomb in someplace and he surrendered. And
He wanted to be arrested.
yeah, that's-
Yeah, so he could preach to them in the trial. Yeah, okay. So, he wanted to be a hero. So, honor or dishonor pertain to the body and basically useless. One should not be hankering after this material deception. People are very anxious to be famous for their religion, and consequently sometimes it is found that without understanding the principles of religion, one enters into some group which is not actually following religious principles and then wants to advertise himself as a religious mentor. As for actual advancement of spiritual science, one should have intention to see how far he is progressing. He can judge by these items. So now you have 20 items by which you can judge whether one is actually advancing in spiritual science or not. These are criterion. 13th chapter, verses 8 to 12. And the first one is humility. Not seeking to be honored by the service one. So, to answer your question, in the first instance, when it says dishonor, it's to be misunderstood. Well, Arjuna would want to be understood that, oh, he's such a compassionate person. But actually, people would look at him as a coward. This is going away from the battle. Krishna's saying, for a person who's been honored, dishonor is worse than death. But actually, when it says honor or dishonor, devotee is not attached to either one. If you preach, you will be dishonored. The demons will dishonor you. So, this thing, that thing, devotee, blah, blah, blah. But Prabhupada was dishonored by some of his godbrothers. But that did not, he was not attached to honor, and he was not attached to discernment. He was attached to following the order of the spiritual. So, now, how do we know what we're doing is right? Like you can say, well, here's a Muslim, for example, one devotee, Manti Dev Prabhu told me this very interesting story. He said that there was a Buddhist lady working in this, where he works. And he was telling her how it's not good to eat meat. So there was a Muslim working there also. So after Ramadan, he told her, oh, it was the best Ramadan ever in Seattle. We killed 8,000 animals in the stadium. It was wonderful, wonderful. The lady got confused. I didn't understand, you know. You say you should eat meat. And the Muslim said that Allah is so pleased with us. We killed 8,000 animals and ate them. So I don't understand. So you see how it can be very confusing for people. On one hand, the Muslims say Allah was very pleased. This year we killed more animals than ever before. And then once they started to tell her you should never kill anything, don't kill that, don't eat meat. So both people are so-called religious people, right? That's why I said you can judge any religion by the content of mercy, cleanliness, truthfulness, and austerity. Now, every religion has those four things, but how much they have it, that's the question. So the Muslim is convinced that the more animals they kill for Eid al-Fitr, which is the day after Ramadan, right? God is pleased. And the devotees say we don't kill any animals anytime, and God is pleased. So, what is God pleased by now? It becomes confusing to people. The Buddhist lady was confused. Therefore, anything that follows the Vedic point of view should be accepted as bona fide. And anything that doesn't follow it should be accepted as not bona fide. So this aspect of Islam is not bona fide. It might be recommended for the Muslim, but from the Vedic point of view, it's not bona fide. And I'm not saying it. Lord Chaitanya told Kazi this. If you read the episode of Lord Chaitanya talking to the Kazi, Kazi told him, oh, in your scripture, they also kill animals. Kazi was right. Previous to Kali Yuga, there was animal sacrifice done in Vedic times, and there were also human sacrifices done in Vedic. But that was only to test whether the Brahmins were saying the mantra was right or wrong. And they were able to bring the animal back alive and rejuvenate it, or even the human being. But in Kali Yuga, it's not allowed. So the Muslims continued doing it, as the Jews did too. They continued the animal sacrifices in Kali Yuga. And also certain Hindus continued the animal sacrifice. The Hindus in Nepal continued animal sacrifice in Kali Yuga. In fact, the Hindus did do it also. That's why Buddha started Buddhism. He revolted against Hinduism because he realized the Hindu Brahmins were deviating from their Shastra, in which animal sacrifice is not permitted in Kali Yuga.
But most Buddhists are meat eaters.
They have deviated from Buddhas.
Okay.
They have deviated from Buddhism. Their excuse for eating meat is that if you eat the animal, you help the animal come quicker to the human form of life.
Because even Dalai Lama eats meat. Somebody asked him, do
Dalai
you eat?
Lama is also nonsense.
No, because he said, somebody asked him, are you a vegetarian? He said, no, I tried being vegetarian for some time, but then I went back to eating meat.
Yeah, that means it's a nonsense.
So Prabhuji, in Dwapara Yuga is when Krishna came and he said, Yada Yada Dharma, last was. So that time was the situation was that bad as compared to Kali Yuga?
Yes.
But Kali Yuga isn't it the most degraded situation of
Well, in
So my point is does he incarnate himself all the time or
no,
is it-
whenever there is a decline in religion, and there's a decline in religion and concomitant rise in irreligion, Krishna, whenever. So, in Satya Yuga, just about everyone's following God. And, okay, well, in this particular age, in the Treta Yuga, 25% are not following. Dwapara Yuga, 50% are not following. And Kali Yuga, 75% follow. So there's a need for Krishna to come in the different ages.
So for this age he is incarnated in the Mahabharata and the Mahabharata is what they
It came as a hidden avatar, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's also incarnated in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. There's no difference between the holy name and the Lord. But it came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach people by his example how to do it. Whereas previously he manifested his power as the Supreme Personality of God, killed the demons, delivered the devotees, reestablished the spiritual religion. But that also deteriorated in time. So this time, the Lord came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to show people how to be a devotee by his own example. He didn't come to kill anybody.
I was wondering something. So the yugas is like happening over and over again. Yeah. So does the same thing happen in every cycle? Comes again and goes comes back and goes again.
Yeah. Comes once in a day of travel. In his original form. And there are many universes, right? Not just our universe, there's many other universes. So right now, Krishna is in another universe having pastimes.
Material universe you are saying.
Yes, material.
But
Like,
Prabhu,
for
the
example-
understanding of that universe is so difficult.
What?
Understanding of that universe is so difficult. When you say there are other universes, there's so many, it's so difficult to comprehend also.
Of course it is, because we're limited. But you have to understand, Krishna is unlimited. And that's what the book is about, fourth dimension. Right? We are also reading this, we'll sidetrack, but we're also reading this. This explains the unlimited nature of Krishna. So, actually, unless, you have to read this to you don't have a copy? Okay, I'll bring the copies next week. We're actually reading this also. This explains the fourth dimension. Fourth dimension, we're living in three dimensions. Land, width, and height. We see things in three dimensions. Fourth dimension is when the length, width, and height becomes infinite. So therefore, Muhammad will stretch his foot right up to the end of the universe, although he's a vision. He's a dwarf. That's fourth dimension. Now, fourth dimension is also that there are unlimited universes. The universe, it's not that, there are other planets in this universe and there are other universes. No. Everything in this universe, planets, the sun, is one universe. Beyond it, there are other universes. Beyond it. We can't even get to the end of this universe There are many other universes, and some of them are much more complicated than this universe. There are many more Brahmas, many more Shivas, many more Vishnus. And they're all coming from Krishna. This is called the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To understand what is meant by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you have to understand all the expansions of Krishna. And we are expansions of Krishna also, right? The innumerable living entities in this universe, and there's innumerable living entities in all the other universes. And there's innumerable number of other universes in the material world. And all of that put together is only 1/4 of the creation of Krishna. The other 3/4 is the spiritual world, which is much more than all of this material universe. Now we begin to understand how great Krishna is. Although he appears like a little boy, he looks like an ordinary boy. He's crying sometime, his mother's tying him up and scolding him, and it looks like he's a little boy. Even Brahma got confused by it. Even Indra got confused by it. So it's not a simple thing to understand Krishna, because we're living in such limited space-time module that Krishna is living in an infinite space. So little by little, the more we listen, we get a bigger, better idea of who this Krishna is. And to confuse us even more, he appears like an ordinary boy. At one point, this little ordinary boy, he lifts up Govardhan Parvat. Unbelievable. A little 7-year-old boy who lifts a whole mountain with his pinky and holds it. Even the cowherd men didn't believe it. They said, we better help him. He's such a young boy. So they put their cane. They have canes, right? They put their canes up on the bottom of Govardhan, right? As if they're going to help him. It's very confusing to understand Krishna, unless you hear from bona fide scripture. So, just like the Buddhist lady was confused, said, wait a minute, the Muslim's saying the more animals we kill, the more God is pleased. And he's saying you shouldn't kill any animal. I don't understand. She got confused. Who should she believe? If two religious men, two different religions, one religion is saying don't kill any animal, the other religion is saying the more animals we kill, the more God is pleased. So you have to come back to mercy, cleanliness, truthfulness, austerity. So their mercy, they have some mercy, but it's lacking.
Some we are very fortunate to we are on this, we are there.
Yes?
Listening about Krishna is not a small thing.
No, it's not a small thing. Very big thing. Just like this man, he comes to our temple to teach Sanskrit, but his goal is not to teach Sanskrit, it's to teach Mayavad philosophy, teach devotees. And then the devotees rejected him. He couldn't understand. I said, look, you can't teach Sanskrit in order to teach Mayavad philosophy. It doesn't work. The Sanskrit is the language of Krishna. You have to be Krishna conscious to teach Sanskrit. He said, no. He said, I don't understand one thing. You guys, you emphasize this Sankirtan and Purushottam. I said, yeah, we emphasize that. But not only that, we also emphasize Bhagavad Gita Yatharup as it is, not as you want it to be, with your phony Sanskrit understanding. He went into a long explanation to me about Sandhya, and how he's an expert in Sandhya. I said, you're not an expert in Sandhya. You don't understand what it means. He got upset. I said, what do you mean? I've been studying it. He showed me his Sanskrit study book, where I said, you don't understand. Sandhya is when, for euphonic pronunciation of Sanskrit, they connect consonants. Sun. Yeah. And then but you have to, when you separate them, you have to separate them according to very strict rules to come back to the original. But Mayavadis were separated in different ways to get different meanings. they're not really honest when they do it. So therefore, and the best example was Ramanujacharya and one of his gurus, who interpreted a verse that says that the
Face of the
face of the Lord is like the butt of a monkey in heat, female monkey in heat. You know, and Ramanujacharya started crying. He said, that's not good. He said, oh, you think you know better than your guru if it's his guru? He said, I don't know, but I can explain it the right way. He says that, you know, that verse says that the sun that shines on a certain flower develops a beautiful pink hue. And the Lord's face is like a beautiful flower that's shining. It's beautiful hue of a pristine flower. And the Guru was stunned. You know, because you know they separate the words and they come up with different meanings. There's this one word called kapya sun. So this word kapya sun, it means that it doesn't mean the butt of a monkey. It means the flower that is, you know, under the sunshine in the springtime. It gives a beautiful fragrance and a beautiful color.
one word has many meanings, that's all. You be very careful, right? One word can give many meanings.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Sanskrit.
Well, because they connect words and then you have to disconnect them in the right way. Otherwise you can end up, you know, he's Kapya, he said that's a monkey, a female monkey. You know.
So before Krishna and Rama had the avatar, prior to that, who people used to worship?
Prior to what?
Prior to Rama avatar came, or Krishna avatar, prior to that, who they are worshipping?
Narayana.
Narayana.
Or Vishnu.
So when Krishna one comes, when Vishnu comes in every Kali Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Treta Yuga, you can't show Vishnu, right? Because Krishna comes only once in India from this thing is
Yeah, but look, Krishna appears in every period, right? Satya Yuga, Dwapara Yuga. So, people worship that, you know, and he comes in different avatars, right? You have the Leela avatar, you have Sanktavish avatar, you have Yuga avatar, you have Manvantara avatar, you have Purusha avatars, you know, you have all these different avatars that are coming. And not only in human form, coming in all the forms of the living entities to save all the living entities, right? So, you know, you have the fish, or for them, you know, Matsya avatar is God. And then you have the pigs, so for them, Varahas. Understand? It comes in every form comes to help the living entities go back to God. So, therefore, if you say, who were they worshipping before? It depends what period you're talking about. Every period the avatar of Krishna comes. But there are more than one avatar. I mean, there's 6 types of avatars.
not the original Krishna will come back. No, it's
What avatar would be?
Krishna's Avtari.
He is the source of all the avatars. He comes in his original form. This is explained in 4th chapter, 6th verse. Jyoti San Abhayatma, Udanam Ishwaru San, Pakitis Mam Adistaya, Ambhavani Atmaya. So he says, 4th chapter, 6th verse. Right before the verse you quoted, Yada Yada Hidamasa. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. It's the original form of Krishna. He comes once in the day of Brahma. What was your question?
So all these 6 avatars which you said, so with Krishna.
So which one is Krishna?
It's the source of all.
No, still, he still came as a human in human form. So in which avatar he?
But no, no.
He came as himself.
That's his original form. It's not he came as human. That's his original form.
Looks human like
His Swayam Bhagavan, the origin of everything. That Sham Sundar form. That's his original form.
Yeah, of all the avatars, that is the complete form, Krishna.
All the avatars are contained within that form. Therefore, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Bhisma Dev is seeing Parthasarathi. When Krishna runs toward him with the wheel, he's seeing Narayana. Narayana is the form of Krishna that he prefers to worship. Although he knows that Narayana is Krishna, but he prefers Narayana because on the battlefield he has a relationship of Shivu. So, therefore, the two-armed form of Krishna is not attacking the Narayana form, it's attacking. And that's the form he loves. This question is asked from Prabhupada, how come? Mr. Dev, you know this Krishna, well, why is he preferring Narayana? Prabhupada said, because he has a particular type of relationship with Krishna in that form. Although he knows that the original form of Krishna is Sham Sundar, he knows that, but he likes to see him in Narayana. Now the gopis, they're not so interested in Narayana. They like to see Krishna, the original. So here, he is the source of all the avatars when he comes. Once in a day, his original.
So the Christians and the Muslims, do they believe in the soul or not?
Yes.
They believe in the soul.
Called Ruh.
And they say animals have soul or not?
That's what we get into it.
Like the Muslims say that, the Christians say that animals
So that's an Abrahamic religion, right? So their understanding of the Ruh, or the soul, is not complete.
At least the Christians say that animals don't have soul. What do they say? You don't know for sure?
They don't accept that animals have a soul.
Even the Muslims?
They say like, all the animals and everything is for them to consume.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Yeah.
It's for like
I
plants,
don't know about the
is,
soul
like
part, but
this
they
is
say
not
they have, God has given them to enjoy these things for human beings.
Because I wanted to understand why they emphasize on the halal. ये झटके में मार दूँगा. What's the point? Pain तो होगा ना उसको.
The point is, it's an Abrahamic religion. They don't believe that animals have a soul.
That's why they.
Otherwise, they wouldn't do that.
No, they won't be comfortable.
They might be killing their own grandfather.
Yeah, it must be same like Christians.
Yeah, it's the same. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, basically it's the same religion. Christianity is a little bit different as they talk about the incarnation, Jesus incarnates. The Jews and the Muslims have a little problem with that. But both the Jews and the Muslims, they also believe in an avatar. They also believe that, eventually God is going to come and make the final judgment.
They also don't believe in the form. No? The Muslims definitely don't believe in the form.
Muslims don't have knowledge. They can't say yes or no. They don't have the knowledge. It's not in the Bible. Christians have an idea of the form. Jesus is the Son of God.
One must have a form.
Must have a form. The Jews mixed up. Usually they're Mayavadis. But still, they have different sects in each religion. Some sects believe in God who may have a form. Nothing is as clear as Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is very clear. Right?
Shri Prabhupada's purport.
Yes. Okay, we stop right there.
Prabhu,
So,
you made it clear, Prabhu, otherwise we also don't have any knowledge about, anything. Because as, we were as confused.
I'll prepare something for you. Whenever these people come to your house, whether it's Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons, I'll prepare something for you where you're gonna stump.
Sure, Prabhu. Half the time I don't know what to say and I don't want to hurt anybody, so I just keep quiet.
Yeah. I'll prepare something for you. I know, they're just kids. They
They're very young
can
boys.
be easily, convinced if you have the right information. Now, people are not always convinced by logic. But if you can get them, like the Mormons, they'll take the shot. The Jehovah's Witnesses won't. If you say you offer the deities, they'll never take it. So you have to trick the Jehovah's Witnesses. Whereas the Mormons are more friendly. Because Mormons are not really Christians. They're not really. Christians don't accept the Mormons.
But Prabhu, in India, we also,
Did you know that? Huh? Yeah. The Christians don't accept them because the Christians were persecuting them. That's why the Mormons had to come to the western part of the United States. They were running away. Christians were ready to kill them. They think it's a heresy. Mormons have their own Bible.
it's their own Bible.
It's not the same Bible. If you look at the Mormon Bible,
Oh, I mean, I don't know, I just take it in.
I know. It's a different Bible. It's a different history.
He got settled in Utah region.
Oh, there's so much hodgepodge. Not just in India. Christianity, Islam, it's all full of hodgepodge. Hinduism also, and Buddhism, it's all full of hodgepodge. That's Buddhism. When you start learning about all these things about God, it's so confusing.
Because it's supposed to be